Hello, welcome back to J Love Video. Today we're here with a special guest, my friend Erin, and I will let my friend Erin share a little bit about who she is, and then we'll get into what our video is about.
Right on. Thanks. So like you said, I'm Erin Knight. I work as a in maintenance at State Parks Oceano Dunes in California, and I'm 30 years old, and I'm a Christian, and I love Jesus. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
me.
Awesome. So today, you guys, we're gonna have Erin share her testimony, and we're gonna have Erin, you just mind like sharing your testimony, your story, and then we'll go from there.
Right on.
God,
All right.
I'm excited.
Well, my parents, they've always been Christians.
Okay.
But they weren't really living the Christian lifestyle. So like when I was born, I was baptized as I was a child, and I grew up in a Christian home. But like I said, they still had their fair share of problems, and they were kind of those Christians that they would just come to church, hear the message, fill the seat on a Sunday, and then just go about their lives just however they wanted. So even though I had a Christian upbringing, there wasn't a lot of Christian values put into my life. And so my parents, they got divorced when I was 10 years old. I went through like a lot of having to live with my dad, and my brother went off and he lived with my mom. So my family was really divided, like from a pretty early age. But one of the times I visited my mom, we went to the Harvest Crusade with Greg Laurie when I was 11 years old. And I heard a story that really touched my heart about another 11-year-old boy who had gotten into a car accident, but he had given his life to Jesus. And, so he was able to go to heaven. And that really struck me, even as young as I was. I was like, I don't want to die and not go see Jesus.
Yeah, totally.
So I decided I wanted to go down on the field and give my life to Jesus there at the Angel Stadium field, which was really cool.
Awesome.
And it was cool because also it was Greg Laurie, who was the pastor, and my father and my mother both were baptized in Newport Beach and gave their lives to Christ under the same pastor. So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome.
So from then on, I started getting my Bible. Even though I was young, I tried to understand certain things, and as much as you can. But even then, like the world came back in, and I didn't really keep up with it. So once I got into high school, I had all the ordinary kind of problems that a lot of girls my age were having, growing up, not knowing your identity, thinking that your value came from, how well you dressed, being like popular, boys. I was super boy crazy. I thought that I gained a lot of value from if a guy thought I was cute, kind of stuff like that. I was really, really also very obsessed with getting good grades. That was another way that I tried to, please my mom and my dad, who'd fight about all sorts of stuff. So I was just like, well, if I just get good grades, like, I'll just, I'll please them and nobody will yell at me and all that stuff. So, I had like a lot of built-in kind of problems and mishaps. So I was always just striving really hard to just be successful and be quiet and not like rock the boat. And also it's like, that's what I was just gaining all my purpose from. I wasn't gaining purpose from God or anything like that. So as I continued my life throughout that whole process, I started getting like really addicted to online chatting, like with people, because the people in my life, they were not feeding me enough. Like I was very attention seeking. Like I just wanted to make people happy, like a go lucky dog. Like I'm just gonna just make everybody happy, keep everybody at peace. And then the people I'd really actually open up to were people online, because it's like they didn't have to see whatever and judge me. And so I started doing that. But I also had such bad self-esteem that I started to catfish. So yeah, I was pretty much putting up other pretty girls' pictures because I didn't think that I was pretty enough to get anybody to care about me or love me. Um, which is, you know, really sad to look back and like see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually my brother realized like this is a really big problem. And he had been actually doing a lot of youth group stuff. He got pulled into a youth group, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so he started dragging me, kicking me off the computer and taking me with him to go to youth group. And I, you know, fought it and I kicked and I screamed for a while. And then I started realizing like, oh, wow, this is actually really fun. Like we go and we eat and I have other friends. And so I started going, but it was more, again, just for like, oh, there's really cute boys at youth group, or like, this is where I go in and get food and I love eating food. And it wasn't really Jesus. But, you know, I went to this summer camp and we went down to Newport Beach and we were getting baptized. And I was like, oh, I want to do this. You know, I want to, at 17, I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to mature up and really take Jesus seriously. So I got baptized there. But, you know, and so I was like pretty good with the Lord and, well, you know, pretty good in terms of things, but I was back on track with reading my Bible, but it still didn't really at that time, because I was so young still and developing, I was still boy crazy. I mean, it doesn't just fix all my problems right then and there, but there was a heart shift to try to see Jesus as my friend and a teacher and to shape my life around helping to serve other people and to seek out those that are lost or alone, and then like bonding and then trying to bring them with me to youth group and stuff like that. But then once I got out of high school, it was just kind of like starting everything all over again. Like I didn't have my church anymore. I didn't have my family. I went to college. And I started feeling that emptiness creep back in because I wasn't in the Word anymore. Like everything that I had was gone. I had to start over. So when I got into college, I found actually 2 girls came up to me and asked me if I wanted to join their young adults Bible study. And so I started to develop friendships that way. And that was really nice because, again, it brought me back around and things in my life started to really clear up. I wasn't as addicted to like men and chasing after them. And so things started to make sense again. And I started seeing like God's values in my life. But then after college, again, a complete and total reset. It's like, okay, now I've lost my friend group. I'm out in the world and I felt purposeless. I didn't know where I was going. I still hadn't like really figured out, even in college, like, what am I gonna do? You know, I had so many different directions, but I just wasn't sure, and I was starting to grow really unhappy because I didn't know. So I joined the CCC, and for many years, actually, I didn't go back to a church. I couldn't find one. I was too nervous to try to go find something by myself. Like if I had a friend that invited me, I would have gladly said yes. But like all the people that I was surrounded with didn't believe in Jesus. They were all just like into the party lifestyle. And I never felt like I wanted to be part of the party lifestyle. So I always just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere at that point in time. So I got really lonely. And then after the CCC, the California Conservation Corps, I went a bunch of other places. I went to Hawaii, but I even felt that even being in a paradise island, I still didn't have community. I didn't have God. I didn't have community. I didn't have like real true friends that valued me. So I was starting to have these like suicidal thoughts of like, why am I here? And I would oftentimes think about just jumping in front of traffic. Because what's the point? I'm like so alone, like on this paradise island, and yet there's nothing here for me. So yeah, I really listened to Satan's lies, and he really does like to isolate us and get us all by ourselves and think that we're worthless and nobody cares when you know, and the more I was surrounded by people, I felt even more alone because they weren't the right kind of people I should be surrounding myself with. And none of them seemed to actually care about me. So I think that was the period of my life when I felt like I was the most alone, was around the age of 24. That was when I was in Hawaii. So then I came back from Hawaii, and it's just like my whole life was just resetting. Like I did a thing, it lasted for a short period of time, and then it's like, okay, what now? Like always trying to find a purpose and never finding a purpose. And yeah, struggling for a community. And so then I came back home, and I really prayed hard to God, and I really apologized to him. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've been shutting you out. What is this? So I prayed to him, and I'm like, God, like I want to go live back up in Slow. It was the one place that I really felt like I actually kind of mattered when I was in the California Conservation Corps. I fell in love with the area, and I'm like, I really feel like I can build my life in this area. And not more than a week later, God gave me an opportunity to come up to Slow and to be a supervisor for the California Conservation Corps for a couple of months, and then kind of go from there what I was going to do. So once that period of time ended as a supervisor there, I worked at a dog training facility. I put in a whole year's worth of time. It was a really, really hard job, and I was very lonely. Again, like most of my free time I spent just by myself in a park, just not having anything to do, not having any friends. And the only person I had in my life was my boyfriend at the time, which was Logan. Which, I mean, yeah, at that time I clung to him like really hard. Like he was my everything. Besides, you know, Jesus. But even then I still didn't have a church, and I was still waiting on somebody to take me to church. I almost tried to go to a church down the street from me, but every time I would try to go, I would get nervous because I was like, I don't want to go sit in a church and sit in the back and not know anybody. I used to be really extroverted, but I don't know, over time, you know, the isolation just made me very introverted. And so I prayed again, and I'm like, okay, like what is it? And no, sorry, let me go back. Before I prayed again about it and really realized like I need to take this more seriously, I started slipping into like this new age spiritualism, where I started to think that God was actually like every religion led to God. And I was like, no, maybe every religion has it right, and that's not right. And that's what Satan might want some of us to believe, is thinking that everything is the right way, when that's not actually God's truth. So yeah, I was into meditation. I was starting to get into crystals, astrology, all these like occult type practices, and just saying like, no, you do you, and like, don't judge me on my life. I'm just here, you know, I'm gonna, you know, do this chakra thing and this meditation and the yoga and all these things, to try to, you know, reach God. And maybe I am my own God. You know, I started believing that maybe we do just create our own gods. Like, I don't even know. And then I got, so then that's when I started to be like, well, maybe I'll pray to Jesus again. Like, it's like I just remembered. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. And so I prayed to Jesus Christ, and I said like, hey, like I need friends. I need a community. There's something severely lacking in my life, and I don't know what it is. But I remember growing up that all the times that I felt really shaky, like I felt a lot better when I read the Bible and when I was around like communities built on that. When I'd go to church, I felt so much better. And no later than a few days did my friend Jelly invite me to one of their church activities, which was just doing like a flower arrangements thing over at Mercy Church. And so I went to that, and I realized how nice it was to be surrounded by a group again.
Come on.
And I'm like, there it is. Like, this is what I wanted. So ever since then, I kept coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, they were just doing more smaller things, and with that I actually started going to church again, and not just attending like a small women's group. And I started to attend church, and then every Sunday that would come was like my favorite day of the week. And then I started getting really involved with like the church and welcome team, and I realized, like, at that point in my life, which I was like 27 now, I'm like, I am mature enough, I am old enough, I am very much more balanced out hormonally. And I really actually buckled down and started fortifying myself and building a stronger foundation in God's word.
Come on.
And I think for the first time in my life, I actually started to understand what Jesus was talking about in all the parables, in the stories, and it made sense. And the more I got on fire for Jesus, and I started watching all these different pastors online. Like, I just couldn't get enough of the things I was learning that my whole life growing up. I'm like, I never heard any of this. Like, I heard like bits and pieces, but I've never seen the Bible this way. I never knew the way that God works. I never understood the Old Testament. It was all boring to me. But now I understand like how the Old Testament and the New Testament like work together. And I started geeking out. Serious. And it was so cool for me, because I'm like, I didn't know I liked reading. But then I started really liking reading, and I started praying, like, for God's will to be done in my life, and for my desires to shift and change, so that I would have his desires become my desires. Because I realized that all of my desires were really selfish, and they weren't getting me anywhere. And so I finally started feeling like I had a sense of belonging somewhere, and a sense of purpose, which was something I hadn't had my whole life. It was like I'd have a purpose for that short period of time, but it wasn't all encompassing. So I started to feel it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, God has something for me after all. And this whole time that I've always looked back, and I was like, God was always there too. Like, I can look at some of these amazing instances where something really bad should have happened to me, or those moments when I was feeling like suicidal, and all those things that he put into my life, where it's like, I didn't notice that he was there, and he was saving me, and he was interjecting for me, and all, I saw things 2020 looking back. And it was amazing, because it's like, I had so many opportunities where I shouldn't have been here, but God like protected me through all of those things, and he restored me, and I just didn't devalue myself anymore. And I just felt so much more healed. And I went to Encounter Weekend, and I heard Jesus tell me that I've never abandoned you. And I started crying really loudly in the church when everybody else was like dead silent. And I bawled my eyes out there really, really loud, just like weeping, wailing, sobbing in the church. And so many of my women from the cell group, they were asking me like, what happened? What, like, they wanted to know. And I just told them, like, my whole life I thought that I was abandoned and I didn't belong anywhere. And God told me, like, I've always been here. You thought you were alone, and I've never left you alone. And so, through all of these things, I've just been so blessed ever since I've stuck with him. He gave me an amazing husband. He saved my husband. He brought me through a lot of difficult times that we were having in our house. Like, once I started going to church, like, I started changing the way that I reacted to the household itself. And everything started to fall into place. The more that I stepped up and became the person that God wanted me to be, the more I saw like how much I was actually poisoning the household by my own reactions to things. Instead of treating people the way that they should be, I was just being selfish and reacting however I wanted. But there were changes, and they were slow, but they were something I look back on and I'm like, wow, our life is so different now.
Wow.
And my mother-in-law is even coming to church now.
Come on.
And, you know, we haven't seen her give her life to Jesus yet, but we're still praying on it. And we're saying, like, hallelujah, like, God's got her already. Like, she's said yes, finally.
Yeah.
And then Tristan also, my younger brother-in-law, you know, the more that we can get some church and Jesus into his life, like, the better. Like, we gotta get that in there. And but otherwise, like, all the other people in my household, we all came to an agreement that we believe in Jesus Christ, and so now we're just ready to change our whole house for the better. And we've been seeing it like every weekend. Like, it just seems to be growing more and more.
Whoa.
So I guess all that to say is, like, life is so much better just when you decide that you're going to do it with God.
Totally.
Rather than without Him.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so that's my story right there. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks, Erin. That's a really good testimony. But before we do close this video out, is there anything you want to share to people right now? Like, there's something on your heart that you just want to, like, let the people that do believe and don't believe, something that can encourage them right now and wherever they're at right now in life, to help them understand, like, kind of what you went through, but how can encourage the people that are watching it that might be struggling, like, right now at this moment?
Yeah. I'd say that God said that when you are seeking with all your heart, and if you're confused and you don't know which way to turn, what to go, what's right, what's wrong, what's false, what's, you know, just what's real. You know, there's so much confusion out there. There's so many ideas, and you might be questioning what's going on in your life. God says, you know, seek and you'll find, knock and I will, you know, I'll reveal to you, open the door. So I just say, pray to God, pray to Jesus Christ and say, like, I don't know who you are, but reveal yourself to me in some way. And I promise, like, it may not be immediately that you get an answer, but God will start to reveal Himself to you, and you just need to open your eyes and look, because God really is everywhere that you look. But you have to have that open heart and that open mind to see just how much He's involved everywhere we go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good. Thank you again, Erin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So, anyways, if you're new to this, you can subscribe if you're new. You can leave a comment. If you have any, like, questions you want to ask Erin, I will make sure Erin looks up the comments, and also like it up. And yeah, thank you guys again, and until next time, J Love is out. Bye.